There is one rule in biology that has never been broken. Every living thing, every animal, every plant, every microbe follows the same arc: birth, growth, reproduction, decline, death. The mayfly lives 24 hours. The Greenland shark lives 400 years. The distance between them is vast, but the destination is the same. No species escapes it. That is what every textbook tells you. That is what biology has insisted for centuries. And that is wrong. Because in the warm coastal waters of the Mediterranean, drifting through the plankton in numbers so vast you would never notice a single individual, there is a jellyfish. It is less than 5 millimeters across, smaller than your pinky nail. It has no brain, no heart, no bones, nothing you would recognize as a face. And it has done what no other animal on Earth has done. It found the loophole. When this jellyfish is starving, when it is injured, when its body begins to fail, it does not die. It reverses. Cell by cell, it sheds its adult form, sinks to the ocean floor, and becomes young again. Not once, not twice, as far as we can tell, forever. This is Turritopsis dohrnii, and its deadliest superpower is not a sting or a speed or a weapon. It is the total refusal to accept death as an ending. To understand how radical this is, you must first understand what a jellyfish actually is. And the answer is almost nothing. A jellyfish is roughly 95% water. The other 5% is a loose mesh of protein fibers holding together a body so simple that it lacks almost every organ you associate with being alive. No centralized brain, no spinal cord, no heart to pump anything, no gills, no lungs, no liver, just a bell-shaped dome of translucent tissue called mesoglia, a ring of tentacles, and a hole in the bottom that serves as both mouth and anus. Food goes in, waste comes out. That is the entire digestive system. Jellyfish do not hunt in any conventional sense. They drift. Their tentacles dangle beneath them like fishing lines, studded with microscopic harpoons called nematocysts. When prey brushes against them, these harpoons discharge with an explosive force, more than 550 times the pressure of a heavyweight boxer's hardest punch, injecting venom faster than any muscle could ever contract. But for most jellyfish, this drifting existence has a hard expiration date. The standard jellyfish life cycle follows a predictable path. An adult medusa releases eggs and sperm into open water. Fertilized eggs develop into planulae, tiny, free-swimming larvae, barely visible. Within a day or two, each planula settles onto a hard surface, a rock, a piece of coral, the hull of a ship. It anchors itself and transforms into a polyp, a small plant-like stalk with a mouth and waving tentacles at the top. Now the polyp becomes a factory. It begins cloning itself, producing a stack of genetically identical discs. One by one, these discs peel off and float away as tiny juvenile jellyfish called ephyrae. Each ephyra grows, matures into a full medusa, reproduces, and then dies. That is the end of the line for every jellyfish on Earth, except one. The discovery was an accident. In the late 1980s, two students at a marine biology laboratory collected specimens of a tiny hydrozoan jellyfish from the Mediterranean. The individuals they gathered were immature medusae, not yet sexually mature, unable to produce eggs or sperm. They placed them in a tank, intending to breed them for research, and then forgot about them. When they returned to the tank days later, they expected to find sexually mature adults. Instead, they found fewer adults than they started with, and new polyps sprouting from the bottom of the tank. The students assumed the jellyfish had reproduced, but the math did not add up. Where had all the adults gone? So they watched. and what they saw changed biology. The adult medusae were not spawning, they were reverting. One by one, the jellyfish retracted their tentacles, shrank their bells, and transformed into featureless blobs of tissue, cysts, that drifted down and settled onto the tank floor. Within 3 days, each cyst sent up a stalk. New polyps, new clones. The same jellyfish, starting its life over from the beginning. They had not discovered Turritopsis nutricula, the species they thought they had collected. They had discovered Turritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish. The mechanism behind this reversal is called cellular transdifferentiation, and it is unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. In a normal animal, cells are locked into their identities. A skin cell stays a skin cell. A muscle cell stays a muscle cell. Once a cell specializes, it cannot go backwards. This is one of the foundational principles of developmental biology. Cells march forward, never back. Turritopsis dohrnii ignores this rule entirely. When the jellyfish experiences extreme stress, starvation, physical damage, a sudden drop in temperature, its fully specialized adult cells begin to transform. A muscle cell from the bell becomes a feeding cell for a polyp. A nerve cell from the tentacle becomes a structural cell for a stalk. The cells do not revert to some neutral stem cell-like intermediate. They jump directly from one specialized identity to another. It is as if a butterfly, instead of dying, could dissolve its wings, retract its proboscis, and reform itself into a caterpillar, which then clones itself into multiple butterflies. The analogy is not perfect, but it is close. The process takes 48 to 72 hours. During that time, the jellyfish exists as a cyst, a quiescent, non-feeding, non-responding blob of cells. But inside that blob, something critical is happening. In 2022, a team of researchers led by Maria Pascual-Torner at the University of Oviedo published a landmark comparative genomics study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They sequenced the entire genome of Turritopsis dohrnii and compared it to its closest mortal relative, Turritopsis rubra, a jellyfish that looks nearly identical but dies normally. The differences were stark. The immortal jellyfish had twice as many copies of genes associated with DNA repair and replication. It carried unique variants of genes that protect telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes that wear down with age in every other animal. During the cyst stage, the jellyfish activates a flood of telomeres, the enzyme that rebuilds telomeres, essentially resetting its cellular clock. It also silences the genes associated with cellular aging. While in its cyst, the jellyfish diverts nearly all of its energy away from growth and feeding and toward one task, DNA maintenance. It repairs the accumulated damage of its adult life. And when it emerges as a polyp, it is, biologically, young again. But here's the kicker. This is not a one-time emergency reset. The immortal jellyfish can do this repeatedly. In laboratory conditions, researchers have documented individual Turritopsis dohrnii reversing their life cycle 10 times, at intervals as short as 1 month. Each time, the jellyfish starts fresh. Each time, it produces a new set of genetically identical clones. And in the wild, where conditions are more variable, there is no evidence of any intrinsic limit on the number of cycles. Think about what this means. A single immortal jellyfish drifting through the Mediterranean might have lived through the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. It might have been alive when the first Polynesian sailors crossed the Pacific. A jellyfish alive today could, in theory, have been alive when humans were still sharing the planet with Neanderthals. We cannot prove that any individual has lived that long. The jellyfish is too small, too transparent, too hard to track. But we can prove that it has the cellular machinery to do so. And there is a second implication that is almost as staggering. Each time the jellyfish reverts to a polyp and clones itself, it produces multiple genetically identical copies. The clones inherit the same immortal capability. If even one polyp survives, the cycle continues. It is not just an immortal individual. It is a potentially immortal lineage, a single genome propagating across centuries, across oceans, aboard the hulls of cargo ships, now found in waters from Japan to Florida to Argentina. Death can still reach the immortal jellyfish. Predators can eat it. Disease can overwhelm it. A sudden environmental catastrophe can destroy it. But old age? The slow, inevitable decline written into the cells of every other animal on Earth. The immortal jellyfish does not seem to experience it. The implications of Turritopsis dohrnii for human medicine are not hypothetical. Scientists are actively studying its mechanisms with specific clinical targets in mind. The first target is transdifferentiation itself. If we can understand how a jellyfish cell jumps directly from one specialized identity to another, without passing through a dangerous, cancer-prone, pluripotent stage, we may be able to induce the same behavior in human cells. The dream application is neurodegenerative disease. Imagine being able to convert a patient's own skin cells directly into functioning neurons to replace those lost to Parkinson's disease, without the tumor risk that plagues current stem cell approaches. The second target is the telomere maintenance system. In humans, telomere shortening is one of the primary hallmarks of aging. Each time a human cell divides, a little DNA is lost from the ends of its chromosomes. Eventually, the telomeres are gone, the DNA itself is exposed, and the cell enters senescence, or dies. The immortal jellyfish has evolved a way to rebuild those telomeres on demand. The 2022 PNAS study identified the specific gene variants that enable this, variants that are absent or silenced in humans. The third target is microRNA regulation. During the cis stage, the immortal jellyfish deploys a suite of short RNA molecules that switch off aging-related genes and switch on DNA repair pathways. Mapping this regulatory network, understanding which microRNAs target which genes, could reveal entirely new therapeutic approaches for age-related diseases. There is a humility built into this research. The animal that may hold the key to extending human health span has no brain. It cannot learn. It cannot remember. It cannot feel pain or pleasure or anything we would recognize as consciousness. And yet, somewhere in its 95% water body, it solved a problem that has consumed the careers of thousands of human scientists and billions of dollars of research funding. We are not going to become immortal. Our biology is far too complex, and the jellyfish's trick relies on simplicity. A body simple enough that every cell can be reprogrammed without the organism falling apart. But we may, in the coming decades, learn to borrow pieces of its machinery. And that borrowing could mean the difference between a life that collapses at 80 and one that thrives past 100. Here is the thing that stays with me about the immortal jellyfish. It does not know it is immortal. It has no concept of past or future. It does not remember the Mediterranean waters where it first hatched, or the hull of the ship that carried it across the Atlantic. When it sinks to the ocean floor and transforms into a polyp, there is no sense of renewal or second chance. Just a chemical cascade, stress signal, gene activation, cell transformation, running its course in the dark. The oldest animal on Earth has no memory of being old. And yet, it is not nothing. It is a living refutation of one of biology's most absolute laws. For centuries, we believed that death was not just universal but necessary, that aging was the price of complexity, that a body with specialized tissues and organs could not undo itself without catastrophic failure. The immortal jellyfish proved otherwise. Not with intelligence, not with adaptation, just with a genetic quirk. Extra copies of a few repair genes, a tweak to the telomere maintenance system, and the willingness to become a polyp again. It is still spreading. Originally endemic to the Mediterranean, Turritopsis dohrnii has now been documented in every major ocean. It travels in the ballast water of cargo ships, tiny, invisible, nearly impossible to filter. It does not invade. It does not overwhelm ecosystems. It simply drifts and survives, and when conditions turn against it, starts over. The most profound biological secret on the planet belongs to a creature you could hold in a teaspoon and not even notice it was there. So here's the question. If a brainless, heartless 95% water jellyfish can find a way to cheat death, what else is nature hiding from us? Tell me your answer in the comments. Is immortality a superpower or a curse? If this episode rewired something in your understanding of what biology is capable of, hit subscribe. Because every week here at WildFact Lab, we crack open another impossibility, and the science behind it is always stranger than the myth. And when you're ready for a superpower that is the exact opposite of immortality, something that kills with precision so surgical it has inspired a new generation of medicine, click right here to watch our episode on the cone snail, a predator that turns its prey's own blood sugar against it. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay aligned.